All right, so I brought in a fantastic guy, a good friend from way back in the day, Myles. What's up, Myles? How you been?
What's
How
going
you
on?
been? Um,
Doing great, man.
yeah. So Myles is kind of he's an everyman. He's the jack of all trades. He's a surfer. He's an outdoorsman. He's a father of twin boys. I know he was in the healthcare industry a while back. Not sure if you're still doing that gig.
Yep,
Um,
still doing it.
Nice. Taking care of everybody out there in California. He's an Exo Squad truther, as I am myself, and he is also a comic book aficionado. So fresh off of making some waffles for his boys, I wanted to chat with him because he's pretty knowledgeable. He's got some strong opinions on WandaVision, and he was part of the reason that I ended up watching Warrior. Obviously, Brian recommended it, but Myles sent me in a clip of Assam facing off with Leary, and I was like, "Ooh, this is gonna be something that's interesting." So, got me hooked. Appreciate it, man. It was a good recommendation.
Yeah, man. Happy to. It's one of my favorite shows right now, and I'm happy to be talking to you again, brother. It's been a
Uh,
long time.
yeah, man, we haven't talked in a while. So, back in the, me and Myles know each other from back in the Zanga days, and nobody remembers what that is
Nobody
anymore.
knows what that is.
Yeah. So first, before we get into WandaVision, because I do want to talk to you about WandaVision. Does Ant-Man belong in the Marvel Heroes starting five?
Marvel, he has a place. He definitely has a
Paul
place.
Rudd's Ant-Man
I
specifically.
okay. So Paul Rudd's Ant-Man, I would say no. He's. I appreciated Savon's like take on like having to build a team based on like like what would make the most entertaining series. But when I look at like a starting five, I look at like you want to build the monsters, right? Like
Exactly.
you want to take over the game. You don't want you don't want like the scrappy team that made it. You want the team that's like Alabama winning every damn year.
Okay, so you're the Nick Saban in the scenario.
Yes, absolutely.
Savon is the Dartmouth of the conversation,
Exactly.
trying to build
Yeah.
just just a good team, solid. Okay,
Yeah.
and
Boise
then
State.
exactly, So you and I have talked on text, and you and I disagree on Wolverine, though. For me, I'm like, this guy is indestructible. He's the conscience of the X-Men. He's a survivor. Like, this guy will find a way to come through. But you don't feel like he belongs on the starting five. So what's your beef with Wolverine, man?
All right. So let me preface this by saying that I am a huge Wolverine fan. He is my favorite X-Men, and I have like
But you couldn't
Wolverine
find a
one.
spot for him on the starting five.
No, because he's a brawler, right? And
Yeah.
he's in the Marvel universe there are levels to the mutants, right? And like the top tier is like Omega level mutant. You got like Magneto, you got Wanda, you got
Professor
Professor
X, maybe,
X,
yeah.
yeah, Jean Grey, that type of thing. And these are people who can literally like destroy everybody in the world. You know what I mean? And like
Yeah.
that's not Wolverine can take on like 100 goons, and that's it, man. He's like he's there to take a beating. You know what I mean? Like he can't take on more than like five or six guys at a time.
But maybe you don't
That's
want
just
the
who he is.
like maybe you don't want the mega level, mutant on your team. Like, what if it goes bad or they get, controlled and then they just destroy everybody? Like, that's not, you don't need that on your team. That's all I'm saying. All right.
Yeah,
So
I get it.
Wolverine.
No, so he faces the same kind of problem that I think about Ant-Man as well, where like he's a great character and
Hmm.
he's fun to read, but like as far as like his actual abilities, he's got like spy abilities, he's got training, he's the best hand-to-hand fighter, but again, he's the best hand-to-hand fighter.
All
That's
right.
like, you know what I mean?
He
Like
doesn't even use a gun.
exactly.
Like, zero range.
Yeah, exactly.
All right.
It's
All
like
right.
you know what I mean? Like they kind of make fun of it in the Marvel movies when Hawkeye has that moment in Age of Ultron, right, where he's like, we're fighting a mountain of robots and I've got a bow and arrow. This doesn't make any sense, right? Wolverine kind of fits in that mold as well.
Fair enough.
Because
Fair enough.
nothing, because I love watching action movies, but it always drives me crazy whenever somebody is like a hand-to-hand fighter, and then all the dudes with guns walk very closely into their range so that he can hand-to-hand fight all the dudes with guns. It like never makes sense to me.
It's true. You're right about that. It happened in in Warrior a few times where you're like,
For sure.
it's fine. You know, makes for a good story.
It
Good
makes for
action.
good cinema. Yeah.
All right, so I want to talk about WandaVision. How are you liking the series so far? We're halfway through, 5 episodes in. How are you liking it?
I like it. I like it a lot. I wouldn't say I love it.
Okay.
There's just things about it to me that, especially for the first 5 episodes, were kind of like everything kind of like, as a comic book reader, kind of like fell exactly in the way that you expected them to fall. And so it was kind of like not as unpredictable. This last episode actually was the most unpredictable to me, and actually changed a few things in what I thought was happening. But even then, it's still kind of like, following a certain pattern that, as a comic book reader, you kind of know. There's like a inherent like weirdness of storyline that comes along with comics, and it's just one of those things where you don't really notice how normalized you get to the weirdness of it. but unfortunately, I thought like some of that just kind of follows the same tropes as like comic styles, and it's kind of predictable, but presented in a fun way, I thought.
Yeah, as someone who's not a big comic book reader, I don't find that the stories are like super predictable to me. So I wanted to get into that with you. So let's actually start with the things you mentioned that it kind of helped rule things out. What were you thinking going into maybe the past couple episodes that you're now able to say, ooh, I don't think they're going in that direction?
So the big one I would say is, obviously when they brought in Evan Peters as the new Quicksilver coming in, obviously the logical jump was to go, oh, they're bringing in the Fox X-Men or something like that. And the way he acted in this last episode kind of made me kind of think that they're not doing that. This is kind of a misdirect. And they're not going in that specific multiverse direction like at all. And the reason that I thought about that was because, number one, he kind of knew everything that had happened in the previous,
in the MCU universe.
Yeah, in the MCU universe, right? And then he kind of has like this previous, he understands the previous relationship between himself and Wanda, which is kind of interesting because Vision didn't even understand the previous relationship between him and Wanda, right? When he was asked about it, he was like, I don't even remember my life before a few days ago. Like,
yeah, he didn't remember he was part of the Avengers.
Yeah, exactly. And so like it makes me think that they use the same actor, but I think it's a misdirect. Like he might just be like somebody that's from that town or something like that, and they're just using that actor to kind of throw everyone off. Because I think he's like an avatar for her bringing Pietro back, the same way Vision's body is kind of an avatar for him being brought back by Wanda as well.
So that would mean then that the Evan Peters Quicksilver is maybe not even really there, right? Like how much are people actually talking to him in the show? Like we haven't really seen him talk to anybody except the twins.
Yeah.
So that makes me think like, oh, I wonder if like he's actually maybe a little bit more of a like an imaginary character, because he's the only one calling her out on this stuff, right? Like so far.
Yeah.
I mean, well, I guess Vision is as well, but
yeah. And so that was so there's a few theories out there that the big bad of this might be like, like a big magical villain. So people are calling it like Mephisto, which is kind of like, he's kind of like the devil of the Marvel comic book universe.
Okay.
Kind of like a demon that has like, magical powers and stuff like that. And then and other people are wondering whether or not Catherine Hahn's character, Agnes,
right.
I don't know if you're familiar, but there's a comic book character named Agatha Harkness, who is a very powerful witch, which kind of fits along with the theme of like, and then there's been a lot of clues as well. Like she's one of those people as well who is able to resist Wanda's powers to a certain extent, right? And then she's also expressed and shown that she's kind of aware of the situation they're in, like when she calls
a little bit.
Yeah.
She's like, do you want me to start from the top?
Yeah, exactly.
I saw something. So New Rock Stars, I think it's called New Rock Stars. I'll have to look it up. But there's a YouTube channel And they break down every episode, and they do a great job. If you guys haven't seen any of their videos, go check it out. But they were talking about like, ooh, I wonder if her finding like the dog, and she was maybe burying the dog when they came and found it dead, or something, like she's maybe like dark. But I think episode 5 makes it clear I think to me it seemed like she's now not going to be in that direction. I think she's going to be more of the like, she's also trapped in this world.
Yeah, so she's in the comic book, she's kind of a neutral character where she kind of like helps move plot forward, right? And so like one of my theories with her, even from the very beginning, was that she and Wanda had some kind of relationship where she was helping her do this, and it just kind of got out of control. Like I don't think she fully understood how much Wanda could do. And I don't know, there's little hints and stuff like that, but then and like it's funny because they throw in a lot of little details. I love the little details in the show. Actually, it's one of my favorite things about it.
What are some of your favorite?
Oh man, the commercials always get me. As far as Agatha herself, I'll get back to the commercials, but as far as Agatha herself, they throw in a lot of lines where she, like you said, like she's able to kind of like be aware of what's going on around her, where other people aren't. And then even in this last episode, the Halloween episode, right? They intentionally, like I said, she was a witch. They intentionally put her in a witch outfit.
Oh yeah.
When Vision goes up to her and stuff like that.
The commercials, I feel like not weird me out. The commercials are a mystery to me because I'm like, oh, they're just so random, and they're clearly random and thrown in on purpose, but I don't get what they have to do with each other, and I don't get how they fit into the story yet. So I'm interested to see, like, is there an actual purpose to this, or are they just like random like breaks that Marvel was just like, let's throw them in? But that doesn't seem like something they would do. It seems like they're intentional, given that they had the Hydra stuff, and
what's funny is, so it's funny that you said the word breaks, because my theory behind that was that they are kind of like the things that made Wanda mentally break.
All those traumas that she's faced.
Yeah, because they're very representative of her traumas. Like one of the details that I thought was pretty cool, like I said, I love the details, is so like obviously the Hydra one and Strucker one are pretty obvious, right? Like we all know who they are and what they did with Wanda. The Stark one is a little less obvious. I thought one of the cool details was the Stark thing was the toaster, right?
Right.
And the guy puts the bread in the toaster and he starts it, pushes down on the button, and as soon as he pushes down on the button, the sound effect they use for the toaster warming up is actually the Stark rocket that explodes in the first Iron Man movie next to him, or was supposed to explode but doesn't go off.
Huh.
Right?
I hadn't noticed that. Okay.
Yeah, so in the first one, when he gets ambushed,
right,
there's a Stark rocket that lands right next to him. And it charges up, it goes beep, but doesn't go off, right? That actually is the same sound that she would have heard with Pietro when the Stark shell came through their home and charged up, but didn't go off, right? So like it's those kinds of details that I really do appreciate about the show that makes me really like what they're doing with it.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but that would have gone off for her, right?
It
because
did not,
her parents
no.
die, right? No?
Well, no. So they said, so one went off and there was a second one that her and Pietro were trapped in the room with, remember? And she said that she spent the day,
Gotcha.
3 days staring at the name Stark on the side of a rocket, thinking that it would explode at any second.
My memory is so bad. You're right. Okay. So
okay.
Yeah. So for sure, right? There's a lot of little details, and that's why it feels like the commercial can't be just little nods. They're not just like little winks. They seem like they're actually really intentional. They're going to help tie a bunch of this stuff together. But maybe it is just like, hey, these are some things from her.
Yeah.
past.
Well, so the reason I thought that this episode was very interesting as well, and why it kind of changed some of my ideas, is the commercial actually had a big part to do with it. If
so
you
this
remember
one was
in
the shark. The shark.
Yeah,
right?
the shark with the
desert.
magic. Yeah. So it's kind of weird because this one was the shark, and then if you watch the commercial, it was about magic, and it's about like that person just wasting away and being like drained of all their energy, which is why I thought someone like Mephisto and he actually has a daughter in the comics named Satana, and one of her main powers is to actually drain magic users
Oh, okay.
of their energy. And then so he's been kind of rumored as like the big bad of the next few movies that has kind of been kept under wraps. So I thought like maybe that was really interesting, because that is a situation that I can't remember anything in the MCU that she's been in that situation before, where something was like draining her magic or anything like that.
So you think there's more like foreshadowing of
Yes,
what's to
I
come
this
starting now?
absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, this episode felt a lot more like foreshadowing than throwing back to others.
All right. So now's your big chance. You're big on calling things out. You called out, Lakers championship last year.
I do that every year, by the way.
But hey, you were right last year, right? So you've got a knack for picking up on patterns and ideas, and then projecting out into the future. So now's your big chance. Put it on record. Where are we going in the second half of this series, and towards its conclusion? What if you were to make some predictions? What are you putting $50 on?
I'm putting $50 on, let's say I think they're trying to introduce elements of the Fantastic Four. I don't think they're going to actually go in that direction, where they actually show them or anything like that. But I do think they will introduce elements, because they've been dropping Fantastic Four hints all series long. Like,
all right, for someone who's missed them, what are you noticing?
so they mentioned CBRM, which is cosmic background radiation, and it's basically what the Fantastic Four were studying when they got hit with the radiation that caused them to turn into the Fantastic Four.
Okay.
That same episode, she mentions that she knows an engineer that can help her build something to get through that radiation without being affected. That's what Reed Richards was building when they were in that shuttle that got hit by the radiation, is a ship that would be able to withstand that kind of stuff. I also think that Monica Rambeau, this will be her origin story. I don't know if you're familiar with her from the comic books, but she's a hero called Photon. And she's very similar to like Miss Marvel. She actually held the mantle of Miss Marvel for a while. And I think this will be a vehicle for her, quite literally, actually, with that vehicle that we are just talking about, to enter the little hex that WandaVision has, and
which is now bigger.
Those powers.
It's supersized itself a little bit.
Yeah. I think this will lead into an explanation for why mutants exist. But I don't think they're going the Fox way. I don't think they're bringing in all those characters. I totally think at this point that Evan Peters is a complete misdirect.
Okay, all right.
To just kind of throw everyone off. But I do think that, so this is my big one that I haven't heard anyone else say. I think that Sword is kind of a stand-in for the Mutant Registration Agency in X-Men. So like their whole deal is, in the comic books, is like going into outer space and tracking like celestials and stuff like that. And Marvel does have a lot of celestial stuff coming out, like space stuff coming. But I don't think that's what they're going to use them for. I think that Tyler Hayward, the director of Sword that's in the show, he reminds me much more of Trask, who was the leader of the Mutant Registration Agency. And I think that the sentient weapons thing that they're talking about will be regarded as the mutants. The mutants are going to be the sentient weapons, right? Because they're like super powered beings that basically, the way they're always described in the X-Men is that like Cyclops, right? He's basically a person who is always holding a loaded gun.
Yeah.
Right, because he can just go off at any time. So that's kind of how mutants are looked at.
Okay.
And I think that Sword, the reason they had Vision's body is because they were trying to build Sentinels.
Oh, okay. So you think the Sentinels are going to be human created in this one?
The Sentinels were always human created.
Okay.
Yeah, so because in the comics, the Sentinels were robots that were created by humans to keep mutants in check. And I think that that's what Sword was doing in the MCU they call them enhanced, right?
Right.
They enhanced people. So I think that their idea was that Captain Marvel and Hulk and all these other people are all sentient weapons, not like Vision. They weren't created, but they're real people, but they're still weapons in their own right.
Right.
And so I think that his job was to create a division that could keep them in check.
Yeah, I mean, there was definitely something going on with Vision, right? He was in pieces.
Yeah.
And he wasn't in pieces when we last saw him at the end of Endgame.
Exactly.
Or Infinity War.
Yeah, so I think that's the connection to the X-Men that they're getting at in this one, and she's definitely going to do something that helps create, the mutants on Earth. But the way they're going to do that, I have no idea at this point. I was going the multiverse theory originally, like everybody else, but
yeah,
at this point, I don't think that's going to happen.
Okay. Well, we'll see if any of that pans out. Are you excited for any of the movies coming afterwards? Like Mike was saying, this is supposed to lead into the Doctor Strange movie coming up.
Oh yeah.
It'll be interesting to see if they actually wrap everything up in this show, or they kind of leave a lot of it open, so that you almost have to watch this in order to like really get.
That's what I'm kind of expecting, actually.
Okay.
I think they'll kind of like give it a season 1 bow.
Yeah.
You know how they do it.
But leave a lot of things still open.
Leave a lot of things, a lot of things open to being speculated about.
I am hoping that at least a lot of it gets wrapped up. I hate it when people leave us with like 18,000 questions open. I'm like, that's not a season then. You just made half of a season. So we'll see. Okay. All right. Sounds good. Well, I'll let you go. Thanks for chatting with me. Anything else?
Anytime, man.
Yeah.
Watch Warrior, man.
So good.
Get that. We got to get more people on there so that they get greenlit for season 3.
Hey, that would be good. They're like, we want to tell at least one more season of stories. So that would be
absolutely
great. All right, man. Take it easy. It was good talking with you.
Yeah, it's a pleasure, man. Take it easy.
All right. Bye.